This video will demonstrate how to remove and replace the power backplane on the Qualstar XLS-810XXX 240 tape library. Prior to beginning this replacement, you need to make sure that the library is powered off through the X-link, and we need to remove the power cable from the library. We need to open the door, and we need to remove the bracket plate that holds the door interlock and the door itself from the XLS. Once we remove these 3 screws, we need to disconnect the interlock power. After removing the power connector on the door interlock switch, we need to remove 2 screws from the panel. Screw 1 and screw number 2. Once we remove the door interlock switch, we're able to remove the whole assembly and push it up against the door to give us a little bit more working area. After we remove the 2 screws, we're able to remove the panel, which will expose the internal connectors of the power backplane board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 connectors that are visible, but we do have 3 more that are at the bottom of the power backplane. Once we have removed the door switch and the front plate from the power backplane, we need to remove the bottom drive bay or empty bay plate. Once you have the cover plate removed, you will expose the drive power supply cable. For this demonstration, we don't have a drive bay in here, but if you did, this cable does need to be removed from the drive bay itself. After we have the drive filler plate removed, we can go ahead and remove the power supplies along with the battery controller. Now that we have the drive filler plate removed, we're able to expose the lip on the bottom cover that once we remove the 4 screws, 2 on the side, 1 on this bottom and 1 on the other bottom, once we remove those 4 screws, we can remove this panel. Please note that we do need to disconnect the bottom light curtain board connector. After we have this removed, we can go ahead and slide the cover toward us and pull it forward. This will give us enough room to expose the 3 cables on the inside of the backplane. These are push and pull connectors. You push the connector, kind of wiggle out, and you pull them. The thing we don't want to do is pull on the cord itself. You have to remove all connectors from the power supply backplane. Now that we have all the connectors removed, we do need to remove the power supply controller board. This board is held in with 2 screws, 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom. Now, depending on the size of the screwdriver you have, you can use a stubby screwdriver to get into the bottom. If not, you can put this panel back, and if you're able to raise the beam, you can slide the screwdriver through and get to the bottom screw. For this demonstration, I'm going to hold the beam up with my left hand, and I'm going to unscrew the bottom screw with my right. Now that we removed the 2 screws holding in the power supply controller, we can wiggle the power supply controller out from the power backplane. And we want to connect our power supply controller to the power backplane. When we connect the power supply controller, we want to take note that these blocks here go into the pin blocks that we see on here. These are very brittle and they can bend. So when we put the power supply controller in, we need to make sure that we line it up properly before actually pushing down. The easiest way to do that is kind of get it at the side and get one row of pins in and then kind of tilt it, rotate it towards you. And this will go ahead and slide the remaining pins in. Once we get the power supply controller installed, we can go ahead and fasten it with the 2 screws, one on the top and one on the bottom. Once we have the 2 screws fastened, we want to go ahead and take and reconnect our 3 bottom connectors. Each connector is marked. This says PC power supply, robotic, and user interface, carousel 5, carousel 5. We just need to basically match up the connections. Once we have all the connections made, we can go ahead and move back down our bottom cover plate, and we can fasten the 2 screws on the side and 2 screws on the bottom. Once that has been complete, we can go ahead and reconnect our bottom light curtain connector. Once we've taken care of the bottom plate with the light curtain board connector, we can go around to the back and we can go ahead and install our filler plate again. With the filler plate, we want to make sure that the wings or the notches are on the outside and they line up on the inside of here. Now once again, depending on if this has a drive bay or not, you will need to reconnect the power connector. You may need to kind of wiggle it in a little bit to make sure nothing is holding it, and then push it in. Once we have it in, we're going to go ahead and fasten the 4 screws. Now that we've fastened our 4 screws, we can go ahead and slide back in the battery controller along with the power supplies. Now we can go ahead and put on the front cover. When putting on the front cover, we want to make sure that the cables that we just connected are tight together, and we can go ahead and put on the cover. Now the cover has 2 screws. For this demonstration, I'm just going to put on the top screw. The second screw is going to go here. Once we go ahead and finish the cover up, the last piece is to move the hinge on the door to the bottom and reconnect the door interlock power. We have that in place. We can go ahead and tighten the 3 screws. Now once again, when you push this, or when you pull this, the door's gonna close. So we need to kind of wedge ourselves in there.